Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we start a new series. We're exploring the book, What is Metaphysics by Seyyed Hossein Nasr. Truly excited to be sharing this because I always wanted to understand what metaphysics is. I could always point to it, but I didn't have the right words to explain it or a framework. And this book really helped me to do that. So why are we discussing metaphysics at all? Why is it important? Well, if you've been following this channel, as we've discussed, the purpose of life is to live a life of ihsan. What does that mean? A life of beauty, a life of excellence, a life of worshipping God as if we see Him, to realize the supreme reality or divine principle directly. And metaphysics is that supreme science, perhaps you could say a sacred science that deals with the highest reality. Wherever in the world you may be in, India, Europe, America, doesn't matter. Whenever you might be watching this, right after this is published or maybe decades from now, if this video still happens to be there, you cannot avoid asking these basic questions, and you probably have asked these questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Because I didn't exist at some point in time, and now I exist. Where am I going? When I say exist, I mean in this material form. Because this materialness will not be there. So where am I going? And what am I doing here while I'm here? Or what am I supposed to be doing? I'm asking this because there is a longing in my heart that I can't explain. Why is it that my desires don't fulfill me? Why is it that I just want more and more and more? What is this quiet ache in my heart that never goes away? In everyone's life, regardless of their race, color, religion, or century or era they live in, these basic questions arise and they demand answers from us. Sadly, most of us put these thoughts in a box and focus our attention on Instagram. But few cannot let these deeper questions go. This questioning, this restlessness is the beginning of metaphysics. I'd like you to take you on a journey to get a glimpse of what this real metaphysics is. So, I'll be adding timestamps for each section below. What we'll be covering is, number one, what is metaphysics really? Not just the big words, not dusty philosophy books, but what it means to you and me. Why the discussion of metaphysics, it isn't a luxury, but it is a necessity. And after that, we get into the deeper discussion of metaphysics, which is being and pure existence. The Arabic word for which is Wujud. We'll explore the different levels of being or Wujud. I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. After that, we'll have a look at the metaphysical understanding of the Shahadah, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadar Rasulullah. And finally, we'll explore how metaphysics reveals the divine principle through three essential qualities. A, God as the absolute. B, God as the infinite. And finally, God as pure goodness. So, what is metaphysics? Well, there are two levels. There's theoretical metaphysics and realized metaphysics. What's theoretical metaphysics? Theoretical metaphysics, that's like the old analogy of reading 1,000 descriptions of honey. How golden it looks, how sweet it tastes, how syrupy and how it flows from the spoon. So what? Who cares? We want realized metaphysics. That's when you finally taste honey. And you realize, oh, honey. Now honey. Professor Nasr takes this distinction of theoretical metaphysics and realized metaphysics a step further. He does it with a beautiful analogy of a seed. You may take a seed, you may dig up the soil, you may plant it in the ground. Before long, a shoot comes up, you water it. Gradually, the shoot grows into a small tree that gives leaves, flowers. Finally, after some time, the seed that you planted bears fruit. And you pluck that fruit. You crack it open, and within that fruit lies the very seed that you first planted. The first seed is the theoretical knowledge that you receive perhaps from a teacher or a book, maybe this video. It has potential, but it hasn't grown yet. The growing tree represents your spiritual journey, your practices, your zikr, your contemplation, which is the process of tazkiyah, purification and nurturing. The fruit are the experiences that you have in the process, the spiritual tastes, the zawq that you gain along the way. These are beautiful, they are nourishing, yet they're not the final goal. It's the seed within the fruit that you have tasted. That is realized knowledge. That is realized metaphysics. It is no longer just theoretical. It has passed through life, growth, and fruition. That seed can now be planted again, continuing the cycle. Therefore, in Islamic tradition, authentic metaphysics was never taught as intellectual knowledge alone. It was never just through a lecture. It was always through mentorship, always through a relationship. It was taught that this knowledge is sacred. It should illuminate the person. It should integrate into one's being completely. That allows us to remember, to realize, to recognize who we are. This knowledge is not just mental, but it should wound our soul and transform our whole being. That said, is metaphysics really important? Isn't it just for philosophers sitting in their dusty libraries? Is it really that relevant for you and me and for the common man? Well, Professor Nasr claims that civilizations will die without it. How? Why? What's his evidence? Well, as we've said, within communities, there are always people who ask fundamental questions. Why? Why are things as they are? And once communities or religions are no longer able to answer these questions in depth for their followers, these questioners will seek answers elsewhere, and often outside the realms of tradition and realms of religion. So, for example, in an Islamic context, a young person, a teenager is seeking answers to these questions about the nature of reality. He and she may turn to a parent, to a teacher, or to his local imam. And unfortunately, whoever that elder is, if that elder is not able to provide the answers, the young person might be told, stop asking these questions, stop being so inquisitive, just go read the Quran, read it more diligently, the answers will come. And if it doesn't, which is often the case, one of two things will happen. The person will fall into a state of doubt. That state of questioning will persist, it'll fester, it'll continue. As a result, that person may become either a modernist trying to trying to go with the times, trying to go with the flow, and to do so just dilute religious beliefs, dilute these metaphysical truths so that that person is just accepted. Or the other extreme, the person will stop asking questions that have arisen from the depths of his soul and become a pure exoterist, someone who sees only the external aspects of religion, a fundamentalist perhaps. And that leads to anger, frustration, because there is this hypocrisy, this dichotomy within, which leads to aggression. And we've seen enough of that phenomena in our world. Many of these people today who carry out aggressive or violent acts are people at some point in their time needed to have questions answered that were not answered for them. Therefore, metaphysics is not an indulgence. It's not a luxury. It's not for just some philosophically inclined. It is a living necessity for any living religion. Any religion from which the wisdom dimension, the deep understanding of reality disappears, it becomes a shell. It becomes hollow and it develops cracks, it decays and eventually breaks and dies. When the inner religion withers away, the consequences ripple outward. It affects families, communities, and eventually the very fabric of society itself. So now that we've got a feel and an understanding of what metaphysics truly is, let's go deeper. Let's dive into its understanding. What does metaphysics deal with? The sages, they don't start with angels, heaven, souls, or spirits. They start with something far more basic. They start with being or existence itself, or wujud. Why were Muslims so interested in the question of pure being, pure existence, more than philosophers such as Aristotle and Plato? It's because of monotheism. It's because of La ilaha illallah. It's because of a religious worldview based on the divine reality. So if they were to understand divine reality, it raised the question, beyond this physical existence, what is existence itself? And what is the ultimate existence? God, because they realize God exists, not only does he exist, but he is the greatest reality. So therefore, in Islamic philosophy, we distinguish between several levels of reality, several levels of understanding existence, several levels of understanding being or wujud. So henceforth, I will use the term wujud, which is the Arabic term of existence or being. At the lowest level is wujud bi shart shay. What does that mean? Wujud under the condition of something. Like this table exists, you exist, I exist, my voice exists, that goes into a ear which exists, and so forth and so on. That's the lowest level of existence. Then we have the next level, which is wujud bi shart, la shay. Wujud or existence without being identified by a particular thing, or wujud which is no thing, but still wujud. Then we have the next level, wujud la bishart. So it was wujud bishart la, now wujud la bishart, which is a higher level, which is completely unconditional wujud. No conditions attached to it whatsoever. Pure existence and being. Finally, the highest level and the most difficult to understand, wujud la bishart maqsami. That is completely unconditional wujud that relates to all levels of wujud. Wujud without any condition, yet it pertains to every wujud in below it. And that's everything you can say about wujud. That's absolute wujud that relates to all relative wujud. Absolute wujud belongs to God. Relative wujud is the cosmos, everything in the cosmos, the world to us, and all levels of wujud. What does that mean? Think of it like the ocean. And I recently saw the ocean. It is massive. It's beyond the horizons, just beyond the horizons from horizontally and beyond there. So it's like the ocean and the waves. The ocean is the absolute wujud, vast, unlimited, containing all possibilities, really all possibilities. Yet each tiny wave is a particular condition existent, particular condition wujud. It is this person, that tree, that moment. These waves, when you look at it, they appear separate and they come, yet they go back to the ocean and they arise again, come back to the ocean, arise again. These waves appear separate, yet they know apart from the ocean. They rise, exist through it, and return to it. Rise, exist through it, and return to it. So this whole doctrine of these different levels of wujud, leading to wujud la shart maqsami, this leads to transcendence, yet at the same time immanence. It leads to wujud existence as something absolute, yet at the same time you're connected to it as immanence. And I love this analogy. It's like the sun and the rays coming from the sun. The sun remains transcendent. It's in the sky, untouched, unchanged. Yet it's light. It's immanent. It's everywhere. And what's the effect of this light? It warms your face. It makes the flowers grow. It illuminates the world and you get to see it. And through it, you recognize the sun for what it is. The sun is both utterly beyond, yet it is intimately present through its light. If all of this sounds abstract, it sounds, I don't get it, so far beyond my reach. It's actually not. Because everything that we've been discussing, it's there in the Shahadah. Those words we've been saying all our lives. Consider how true and beautiful La ilaha illallah is. It is the perfect expression of pure metaphysics at the highest level. There is no God but God. There is no reality but the absolute reality. And from that absolute reality issues Muhammadur Rasulullah. Muhammad is the messenger of God. He is a messenger. Which metaphysical meaning is that? Everything positive, every positive manifestation comes from God. You see, the Prophet has an outer reality and an inner reality. Outwardly, he's a man. Yet in his inner reality, he represents the perfection of God's creation. Thus, we see that all positive qualities are, in a sense, Rusul, are, in a sense, messengers sent by God. Every act of beauty, every moment of mercy, every flash of wisdom are also messengers from the divine. Therefore, these two fundamental declarations, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadar Rasulullah, they contain metaphysical teachings, they contain cosmological teachings. They show that the source is beyond all things. Wujud la beshad maqsami. And yet from that, everything positive flows from that source. Therefore, every time you now recite the Shahadah, be it in azan, be it in iqama, be it in your prayers, your salah in a lecture, I want you to reflect upon these metaphysical truths behind this absolute, this testimony of ours. Now, all authentic metaphysics deals with the divine principle. And as I shared in the introduction, the divine principle is a metaphysical statement of God as the absolute, the infinite, and pure goodness. These three fundamental qualities of God, absoluteness, infinity, pure goodness, from these flow all the divine names. The 99 most beautiful names or Asma al-Husna of Allah. And let's explore each of these qualities. Are you ready? First, absoluteness. When I first got that everything we think of as real, or what we thought of as real, this table, this floor, my voice, is actually not real, is actually relative. And only God is absolute. When I just got that, it took me a while to get it. It blew my mind. And I could never look at the world the same way again. I'll try my best to explain. Yes, the world around us, it has a reality, it exists, but its existence is completely, utterly dependent on God. Take this table for example. Seems solid? It's independent? It's real? It exists? But what if I smash it and it's shattered? What about then? It existed. Now it no longer exists. Well, let's look at another way. It's a table now. It's made of wood. But that wood was once a tree. That tree also didn't exist at once. It grew from what? From soil and from that sunlight. That soil, which was earth, that didn't exist earlier. That earth arose from elements. And that elements were forged in the stars. And all of that depends on what? Depends on kun fayakun, the divine command, be, and it is. Remove that kun, remove that be, there is no earth, there is no soil, there is no tree, there is no wood, there is no table, there are no atoms, there is nothing at all. Only God is absolute. The character of reality, ultimate reality, belongs to Him and Him alone. And that is what the Shahadah captures so perfectly. Absoluteness of the One. The ultimate meaning of La ilaha illallah, that in the deeper sense means there is no reality but God, but Allah, the real, the absolute reality. Or as the Sufis say, there is no existence, there is no existent but God. After understanding that only God is the absolute, we step into another dimension. God is not just the absolute, He is the infinite. You see, if God were only absolute, pure oneness, that would mean nothing could appear besides Him. But God is not only absolute, God is also infinite along being absolute. Therefore, the world becomes possible. The infinite is the principle by which the One radiates into countless forms. Stars, angels, souls, trees, birds, galaxies. The Sufis call this the breath of the merciful, the Nafs al-Rahman, the infinite compassion that brings limitless possibilities from the treasure of the absolute, the Kunzul Makhfiya. Creation is what happens when infinite beauty pours out from the absolute. The infinite means that God's knowledge never ends. His mercy never ends. His beauty never ends. Every form in the universe, every divine name reflects that infinite reality pouring itself outward, endlessly, boundlessly, without exhaustion. Finally, the third quality of the divine principle, which is divine goodness. Not only is God absolute, not only is God infinite, He is also goodness and the source of all that can be considered to be good and beautiful. If God were only absolute and just infinite, the universe would have been created, it would have been overwhelming, it would have been grand, but it would be kind of impersonal. I wouldn't be able to relate to it. But because God is also pure goodness, His names are not just display of power, but they're also kindness, wisdom, care. In fact, His mercy precedes everything else. He is Ar-Rahman, the one who loves before you even exist. He is Al-Latif, the one who works gently behind the scenes. He is Al-Hakim, the one whose wisdom has no blind spots. He is As-Salam. He is peace itself, the peace that we are all yearning towards. When you see compassion in this world, that's God's compassion. When you see a mother's tenderness, that's God's goodness. When you taste a moment of peace after prayer, you're blessed because that's God's goodness. Or when you hear Quran or any sacred scripture recited and your chest softens, more goodness. So who is the person who seeks after this knowledge? That person is one who is not fully satisfied with the mundane externalities of life, family, career, material comforts, or even social activism, which to a certain extent can take one beyond itself. The person qualified to study serious metaphysics is one who feels that his or very reason for living is to pursue, is to search for answers to ultimate fundamental existential questions, and is also capable of authentic answers to questions such as, why are we here? Where did we come from? Where are we going? Where we should be going? What happens to us after death? Therefore, may Allah make us among the true seekers. May He open our hearts to see reality as it truly is. And may we taste the zawq, the sweetness of His presence. Ameen. Khud Hafiz.